one of West Nipissing's native. Campbell Anderson is the provincial municipal employee along with Jean-Guy Séguin, and the board does a lot of work for community safety. So that's kind of my opening, and I'm here to observe and hear. And it's thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. So, en même temps, il suffit qu'on est ici. L'autre raison pourquoi j'ai demandé que les gens du board soient ici, c'est si jamais vous avez autre question, communiquez avec nous autres. On est votre voix pour n'importe quelle question que vous avez. So if anybody has any questions, these are your board members. And if you have any questions, don't be shy. Send us an email, call us, and we'll be more than glad to listen to what you have to say. And the reason we have this fraud and scooter is because we got lots of questions from people. So that's the only reason we decided to make this. La raison qu'on a fait cette rencontre ici, c'est parce qu'on a eu des appels des résidents nous posant des questions. Qu'est-ce qu'on est supposé faire? On n'est pas certain. Alors, on a organisé cette rencontre ici pour de l'éducation, pour que les gens de la communauté puissent comprendre, voici les règlements qui sont en place en ce moment. C'est beau? Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Alors, je vais céder la parole à toi, Stéphanie. Merci.
Can we see the presentation? Oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. So again, my name is Stephanie Senecal. I am the Senior Support Unit Coordinator at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. I've been with them for approximately 5 years, and I have been doing fraud prevention presentations for the last 3 years. My role is not only within this community, but it's all over Canada. So I will travel all over the province to do these presentations, and I will do these presentations also virtually. So it's important that you know that if there's a group that is part of the community, not necessarily this community, but any community that would benefit from a presentation, please reach out and we will do our best to accommodate that. So during the presentation, we will talk about a little bit about who the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre is. We're going to talk about the solicitation methods, the tools of the fraudsters, the top reported frauds, and what to do if you are a victim of fraud. Also, the presentation that I'm providing today is only about 20 minutes long. The normal presentation is about 45 minutes, so I am compressing a lot of information. So we'll go through the first part quickly, okay? So what is or who is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre? So it's important to know that we are based out in North Bay. This is something that started about 35 years ago. It was one OPP detective that was assigned to frauds, where they soon realized even 35 years ago that one person wasn't enough to take care of all the frauds. So the RCMP jumped in. So we're dual mandated. So we're run by the RCMP. We're in partnership with the Ontario Provincial Police, which I'm an employee of. I'm a civilian member, and the Competition Bureau of Canada. So pretty much we hold fraud data intelligence, and we share it with pretty much anybody we need to share it with. So our main goals is prevention through education and awareness, hence why we're here today. Disruption of criminal activity, intelligence dissemination, support to law enforcement, and building partnerships with the private and public sector. As well, if there's questions in French, please feel free to ask. I'm also bilingual. So a little bit of statistics for you. So the total dollar loss over time. So we know that fraud is getting worse every single day, and the statistics do prove it. So in 2020, there's a total reported loss to us of $165 million. And then just last year, that number went up to $637.5 million. So at the CAFC, Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, we have 3 different units. So the first unit is the unit that accepts all the reports, whether it's by mail, by fax, over the telephone, on our website. Law enforcement will also send us reports, and our partners will also send us reports. So the fraud prevention and intake unit is the unit that accepts all these reports, does the data entry, and they are actually the fraud specialists, I like to call them. The second unit that we have is the senior support unit, and I'm lucky to be part of this unit. So what we do is that we do fraud prevention and awareness presentations, but we also recruit volunteers that will do outreach to senior victims of fraud. So with any victim that needs a little bit of additional help, we have volunteers that do this work. So they will call them, they will send them fraud prevention packages by mail or by email. And the volunteers will also hold booths at events. So I know that we're holding a booth at the community center in the next few weeks. So come and see us there if you have additional questions or want to volunteer or want to chat about the center, we will be there. And the third unit, they deal with the intelligence. So they'll analyze the database, they'll see what the fraud trends are, they will educate law enforcement. So example would be like if we see that there's a trend happening, for example, in this area, West Nipissing, well, we can create an intelligence package and share it with that area so they know that this is happening within their area. But it could be the other way around where Nipissing West is doing an investigation on a fraud. They can come to us and say, hey, do you have anything on this person or this bank account? We'll create a package for them to assist their investigations. So it's important to know that we do not do any investigation. So if you are reporting a fraud, you need to report it to the local police, especially if you've lost money, because it is their role to investigate. But you can also report it to us to have the information within our database. Speaking of reporting, so you can report with our toll-free number, you can report on our website as well. And it's also important to know that you can report on behalf of yourselves, you can report on behalf of somebody else, and you can even report anonymously. So if you know that your neighbor is being scammed, you've tried to talk to them, it hasn't worked, you can report it to us and say, hey, my neighbor is Mario, he lives on Nipissing Street, this is his phone number, this is what I believe is happening. Can the senior support unit reach out to them? We will. So the good thing is that the senior support unit is changing. So it'll be called the Coordination and Community Support Team. So we are not just going to be providing outreach to seniors. We will also be providing outreach to anybody who requires it. And now we're going to talk a little bit about fraud is underreported. So it's estimated that only about 5 to 10% of people actually report fraud to the center or the police. And this study was actually made through, they did a takedown of a boiler room, like a big warehouse of fraudsters. They were able to find lists of victims, and then they were able to cross-reference those victims to the people that have reported to police in the center. So McMaster University did this study, and this is where these numbers come from. And the solicitation methods by dollar loss. So I'm not sure if you can all see that, but I do want to mention the three first ones for sure. So the number one is social media with a total loss of $414.2 million. This is last year. Internet is number two with a total loss of $115.8 million, and email is number three with $73 million. So this is what is reported to us. So when we're looking at these numbers, again, it's important to know that only about 5 to 10% do report. So those numbers are a lot bigger than what, are a lot smaller, sorry, than what they should be. And now we're going to talk about a little bit of the tools of the fraudsters. So I find it important to educate people on the tools, because these tools are part of every single scam that we deal with every single day. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there are some that I want to talk about today. So spoofing is the number one. So spoofing is when a fraudster will make you see what they want you to see, either on your call display, in a text message, or in an email. So just because it says that it's Visa calling or RBC calling, or if it's a number that resembles one from your community, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's them. So rule of thumb for this is don't ever believe what it says on your call display. So for emails, a good way to find out who is actually sending that email. So example, if you're getting an email from Canada Post and it says from Canada Post, you can take your mouse and hover over the name of that organization and you'll be able to see what the actual email is. So, and if that doesn't work, you can click on reply, and that's totally okay. So example, if it's Canada Post and they're using what we call a free domain like Gmail, Hotmail, Outlook, Yahoo, there's so many free domains out there, you know 100% that it's a scam. But if it says like canadapost.ca, it might be real, but you have to be very vigilant because those scammers will sometimes interchange letters. So if you're looking quickly, you might think it's Canada Post, but if you're looking closely, you might see that spelling mistake. The other thing I want to talk about is remote access. So some people are giving fraudsters remote access into their device. So sometimes knowingly, the fraudster, I have to tell you, fraudsters are very professional. They know their job. They do this every single day. They will explain things to you until they're blue in the face. They're the nicest people in the whole wide world and they want to help. They want to steal your money in the end. So what happens is that you will give them remote access by downloading an application to your device. So the top three most popular applications that are used for this is TeamViewer, AnyDesk, and UltraViewer. So usually what happens is that there's like a pop-up on your screen and you have to accept. And when you accept, this gives them access to your device. As they're in there, they're probably helping you maybe remove a virus, or maybe they're helping you create an account, or whatever the reason may be. But as they're in there without you seeing, they are going through all of the information on your device. So sometimes you don't even know, you can't see that this is happening. You may say that, no, there's no personal information in my device, but let me tell you that honestly, if there is a little bit of personal information in there, they will find it. And it's also important to know that if you've ever done this unknowingly and you realize that there's something odd with your device, or you did it knowingly, please have your computer cleaned, because if ever you open your computer again, the fraudsters are in there. It's almost sending them an alert saying, ah, this person is back on their laptop. So then they can go, they can see you putting in passwords, accessing your bank account, accessing your email, accessing your credit card statements, Amazon, whatever it may be. So if ever you've done that, have your computer cleaned, or close that computer, put it in a drawer, and don't ever open it again. So one thing that happens often is the tech support pop-up. So the tech support pop-up, that is when you get something that says there's a virus in your computer and you need to call this number to remove the virus. Well, don't ever call those numbers. You need to bring your computer to a technician again, or run a scan on your device, because what happens here is they will ask for remote access to remove the virus that they've embedded in your device. They know how to remove it because they're the one who put it there, right? So don't ever give access to anybody for whatever reason to any of your devices. The other thing I want to talk about is compromised accounts. So I have a list here. So number one is use strong passwords. What are strong passwords? So we say that a strong password is a minimum of 10 characters with uppercase, lowercase, a number, and a special sign. And I know passwords, they're a pain, right? We need passwords for everything. So I tell you, don't use the same password twice. It's hard to keep track of these passwords. So for me, don't ever use like any Word document on your device to store your passwords. Because imagine if you do unknowingly let somebody into your computer, then they'll have all your passwords. So write them down in a booklet, but out of sight. Keep that booklet out of sight. We all think that fraudsters are overseas or in another country, but you never know who's coming into your home. It could be your neighbor, it could be the plumber, it could be your PSW, it could be your grandson's friend. We don't know who's coming into our house, so hide that booklet somewhere. The other thing is enable the double authentication factor. So double authentication factor could be either that they're sending you a code to your email or text message, or it could also be like security questions like what's your mother's maiden name, or what was the name of your dog as a child, or what street did you live on. So it's important to set those up. They're also a pain, and I understand that, especially for seniors, because they don't always have access to a cell phone or an email, but they've been put in place to protect you in the end. And we don't want you to share passwords with anybody. And also those double authentication codes that you receive by text, don't ever share that with anybody for multiple reasons. But the most important reason is because let's just say somebody is claiming to be RBC. They call you, they say, I'm going to send you a code. You need to give it to me to reverse a fraudulent transaction. Well, you're giving them access to your account. What they're doing is they're changing the password with that code. So for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what it is, you don't share that code with anybody. We also want you to change your passwords regularly and try not to access private accounts using public Wi-Fi, and enable alerts with your banks and credit card companies. So what do I mean by that is any type of, if you're making, it could be like a monthly alert where if your account goes below a certain balance, they send you an email or a text message advising you of it, but it could also be transactions that are greater than a certain amount. And the reason why I say this is because if fraudsters in your bank account, they can clear your bank account like this. So if you get these alerts, at least you get notified immediately and you can deal with the problem at that point. The other thing I want to talk about is online classified. So that's like any buy and sell website. So that is, fraudsters are on both ends of the deal here. They could be the buyer, they could be the seller. So if they are the seller, most often they will ask for a deposit up front to keep the item for you. At the OPP detachments or any police service, there's a safe trading spot that we call. So what you can do is if you are buying or selling an item, we always encourage you to go to the OPP detachment right in front of the doors. There's cameras there. You can trade money, physical money for the item, and then you're safe. And at least that way you know that it's on camera, but you also know that fraudsters will not meet you at the local OPP detachment. And if they are the sellers, I feel like there's always a third person involved here. So it's either you are selling your cell phone to Joanna, but can you ship it to Bob? It's for his birthday. Or you're selling your device to Joanna, you're getting a check or e-transfer from somebody else. Or if somebody is trying to come and pick up the item for that person. So anytime there's a third person involved, that's a huge red flag for me. Okay, let's skip. A little bit of stats again. So our #1 scam last year was investment scam. We had 3,866 victims, and the loss is, I can't see. 1 second. $310.5 million. And the second one I want to talk about, which is our third highest scam, is the romance scam. So we had 1,030 victims with a total loss of $58.5 million. So those numbers are really big. Investment scams, how do they usually happen? So these usually happen with cryptocurrency. People are curious about cryptocurrency. They go on the internet, they find a fraudulent website, and they give their name and their telephone number. The private investors will call you. They will explain to you cryptocurrency until they're blue in the face. They will get you to open an account. They will get you to invest usually about $250 to begin. And then the account that you've created, they're the ones running it. It's also a fraudulent account. So what's happening is they're telling you that your money will double within X amount of time. And then you log into your account. This sends them alert. They know that you've logged into your account and your money has doubled. So this is how they get you to invest more and more and more. And then when you try to pull your money out, there's additional fees that they haven't talked about. So it could be commission fees, service fees, taxes. As long as you're paying these fees, there'll always be fees. So if you are investing with cryptocurrency or with anybody, make sure that you verify with the Securities Commission that they are a legitimate investing company. Romance scams. Romance scams, they usually start on the internet. The fraudsters are seeking for their victims. They will go on social media, look for anybody widowed, separated, divorced, or single. They will target them. Romance scams have changed in the last little while. We're now calling it also friendship scams because these scammers will look for anybody now. They'll befriend people, even if they're married or not. Usually these people claim to be working overseas on the military or on an oil rig. They have limited access to telephones, their funds. They will talk to you every single day. They will gain your trust. They will, tell you everything you need to hear. You're beautiful. I love you, my dear. How was your day? They will talk to you every day. Once they know they have your trust, that is when they're going to start asking for money. There's always something bad that happens. I can't access my bank account. Can you send me $50 to buy food? Oh, I still don't have access. Can I have rent? Or sometimes they will say that they have an item that's worth a lot of money. It's in a storage area. They can't access it anymore. And the storage area is closing and they need to ship it out of there. They want to ship it to you. then you're signing documents and with lawyers to have this item shipped to you. And so I'm saying this really quickly, but honest to God, this is the one that breaks my heart the most, because love is strong and people have a hard time understanding that they're being scammed. So if you know somebody that's being victimized by the romance scam, please report it to us and we'll have somebody reach out to them. The next one is the emergency scam. So we've been talking about the emergency grandparent scam for a long time now. So this is when a grandchild calls you, they're in trouble, they're in jail, they either found drugs or they got in an accident and you need to pay money for bail or lawyer fees or something like that. The only thing I can say with this is if ever something like that happens, or any type of communication that you are getting and you're not 100% sure, you need to confirm with the source. So you need to call your grandson. These scammers, with any scam, they'll say, don't tell anybody. That's a huge red flag. So you need to talk to somebody about it. So with any scam, make sure that you call the source. If somebody is calling you saying that you owe $5,000 for CRA back taxes, well, you go find a piece of paper that you've received in the past with the telephone number from CRA. It could be your hydro company. It could be anybody. Find a number that is legitimate, that you know that you've used in the past to confirm the legitimacy of the correspondence that you're receiving. So call your grandson, call the mother. Even if they're saying don't tell anybody, it's important to talk to at least one person. Another text that we are getting for the emergency scam is that fraudsters will pretend to be a child and they'll say, hey, mom, just letting you know I changed my number. And then 3 days after, they'll say, hey, mom, I'm blocked out of my bank account. Can you send me $500? I need to pay my phone. They're going to cut me off. So it might not be a big emergency. It might also be a little emergency. The next one is the bank investigator scam. There are thousands of variations of this one, and I can't always wrap my head around it. They're very complex. But pretty much what's happening here is that they're claiming to be your bank and they're saying that your account's been compromised. They think they know who the scammer is, but they need your help to catch the criminal. Believe me, your bank or any law enforcement will never call you and say they need your help to catch a criminal. And there's always your bank account, like they'll want access to your bank account, they'll want your debit card, they'll want your credit card. They may say that, put your debit card in an envelope with your PIN and we'll have a taxi driver go pick it up and drop off the new one. And people think this is great, right? I don't have to move from home. They're just going to do it for me. Anytime when it comes to personal or financial information, you need to verify, okay? The prize scam. I'm sure we've all heard about the prize scam, but one thing I want to talk about for the prize scam is all of these actually, you need to pay money to collect your prize. So under no circumstance in Canada that you are to pay money to collect a prize, okay? Extortion scam is one of the last ones I want to talk about. So this one is when there's a threat. It could be a little threat, it could be a big threat. So the ones that I do want to talk about today is the sextortion scam. This is the one that breaks my heart the most. So this one is when you are in a relationship online, you start sharing pictures that you probably shouldn't be sharing, and then the scammer will use those to threaten you if you don't pay money. So they will share it with at your job, they'll share it on your social media, they'll share it with your mom, they'll share it with whatever. So they're saying that even if people are paying the demands for money, there'll always be threats. So people pay more, pay more, pay more. And just last week, actually, I watched a video online where this teenager starts talking to somebody online. So from the time he started talking to this person online, 6 hours later, he ended up killing himself because of the threats that were coming in. I'm a little emotional right now, actually, but it happens really fast. So it's important to know about this. And also not only that they are using pictures that people have shared, they're also taking your face and stealing a picture online and putting your face to that body and threatening you with that. So if ever that happens, don't pay any money and report it to your police. Other scams that are part of the extortion scam would be like you have a parking ticket, you need to pay or you'll lose your license, or you need to pay your hydro bill or we'll shut off your hydro. So again, it could be little threats or big threats. Phishing and smishing is when you receive a text message or an email that contains a link. When you click on that link, they'll ask you for personal or financial information. So rule of thumb here, don't ever click on a link and provide personal or financial information. And artificial intelligence is very new. It's very scary to us. I'll say like my mom used to say when I was a kid, don't believe everything you see on TV. Well, even worse now, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Deepfake technology can change what the person is saying, can change the sex of the person, the hair, the skin color, the movements, they can do everything. So just because you're on social media and you see Elon Musk endorsing cryptocurrency or trying to sell a product, you know, I put this cream on my face, I don't have any wrinkles anymore. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Last one is the recovery pitch. So if you've been a victim of a scam before, it's even more important for you to educate yourself on other scams because it's proven that fraudsters will share information with other fraudsters. So even if you've just provided your name and date of birth, if the prize scam people can't use it, they will sell it to the investment scam people, so they will try to scam you again. So even if it's just a little bit of information that's been compromised, all the scammers have it now. The recovery pitch is when you've lost $50,000 to an investment scam example. These people will call you claiming to be private investigators or lawyers and say, we know where your money is. We can help you get it back, but you need to pay us for this service. So I left booklets on the table there. So please take one, please take more if you feel that somebody else in the community would benefit from one. And there's also magnets, our telephone numbers in there, our websites in there. And there's also telephone numbers for Equifax and TransUnion. So those are the two credit bureaus that we have. And I would ask all of you, even if your information has not been compromised, this is a free service. You can place alerts or fraud warnings, they call it. So if somebody is trying to apply for a credit card or a loan under your name, they will send you an alert before they actually process the credit card or the loan. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. So merci Stéphanie. Est-ce qu'il y en a dans la foule qui ont des questions? Does anybody have any questions? Oui, madame, en voix fort.
You mentioned about if your computer's been compromised, get it cleaned.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like bring it to a technician. Don't hire anybody online to do this for you because they're probably scammers. So I would go to a known place, like, you know, we have Staples, we have Best Buy, they can look at it. You might know there might be other smaller, like I know there's computer places in North Bay, smaller ones. Those are people that you can trust as well. Just don't hire anybody online to do it.
Just as an add-on, I'd like to suggest North Bay Computers.
There you go. I can't endorse anybody, but merci, Madame Ramillon.
I know it's yes, no. For the authentication that you talked about, what is that?
So that is when, have you ever tried to access a bank account or maybe even Amazon and it sends you a code to make sure that it is you?
Or like they ask you to give you a phone number or something as a second, is that the authentication?
That could be yeah, that could be a double authentication as well. Yeah. But sometimes, like if you forget your password, for example, and you try to change your password, they send you an email with a code or a link. That's kind of like the double authentication factor as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Autre question dans la foule? Oh, any questions by board members here? Questions? Good. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Good presentation.
Thank you.
So now we'll pass it on to Constable Lewis. Thank you. Just get-
Well, thank you, everyone. Again, my name's Rob Lewis. I'm the Community Engagement Officer. Can everyone hear me back there? Okay, I apologize. First of all, I only speak English, so if any questions, please direct them my way, but my inspector could help you if it's French. Second, this is going to be about electric-powered vehicles. If anyone tried looking for information about this, you could see there's not too much on the internet. So basically, I had to put this together from scratch, so I'm hoping I could cover pretty much everything. If I happen to miss something, I'm hoping my inspector points out to me that we could cover, because there is no formal OPP presentation on this, so I kind of created this myself to try and give you guys basically the best information, but just staying at the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot of these things could go more into depth. So that's kind of, and I want to try and keep it as simple as possible, because I don't want to get it too much in terms of a police view of it. I want to try and keep it simple for the public. So electric vehicles. How do we go here? Basically, the objective here is, let me get rid of this. I'm going to talk about the enforcement laws, which is the criminal code that will apply versus Highway Traffic Act, definitions, vehicle standards, electric vehicles, the difference between a prohibited vehicle on a highway and the pilot project vehicles.
You do with your arrows.
There we go. So enforcement laws. What I did, I went back to the basic here for police officer, how to help us investigate anything related to motor vehicles and electric vehicles. Any police service, OPP, municipal forces, we work basically with the Criminal Code of Canada or the Highway Traffic Act. So just so you know what the criminal code is, it's basically any offense that could happen anywhere in Canada. So it could be on public property or private property. These are more serious offenses for driving, and I'm going to just stick for driving stuff. But basically for driving offenses would include such things as impaired driving, driving while disqualified, dangerous driving. And under the criminal code, impaired driving, disqualified driving applies to all powered vehicles under the criminal code. And I'm going to go through what a powered vehicle is. So basically, in a nutshell, and I'll explain it, anything that's not muscular powered is considered a motor vehicle under the criminal code. So where that applies for any electric vehicle is you can be charged for impaired driving on any electrical vehicle or anything that's not muscle powered. And if you've been charged with impaired driving, you cannot operate one of these electric vehicles if you've been charged with impaired driving. Under the Highway Traffic Act, which is our provincial laws, this only occurs on highways, roadways, streets. It does not apply to private property. These are things such as rules of the road, such as speed, stop signs, signals, documents, driver's license, insurance, ownerships, etc., and equipment that will fall on the vehicle, such as lights, helmets, restraining orders. Again, under the Highway Traffic Act, if you're a suspended driver, you cannot operate a motor vehicle, electric motor vehicle. Was it enter we just did?
I think so.
So I'm going to go through the definitions that might give you some understanding. Under the criminal code, the definition of motor vehicle is defined. So can you hear me over there? Okay, so I thought there was a question. Under the criminal code of Canada, a motor vehicle is defined as a vehicle that is drawn or propelled or driven by any means other than muscle power, which excepting railway. So what I explained earlier, basically anything that uses power to make that vehicle mobile is considered a motor vehicle under the highway under the criminal code. The only thing that's not accepted here, if you're wondering what muscular power is, that's basically a bicycle.
Could you explain that, please?
Which part?
Define what you mean by this.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We can't hear you either.
Okay. So under the criminal code, the definition of a motor vehicle is anything that you cannot use muscle to propel it. So such as a bicycle, a skateboard, those things are not classified as motor vehicle. Anything where you have to use external motor to propel that device is defined as a motor vehicle. And see where that's important is where we get our laws and our authority to lay charges or enforce the laws. So we need to know what the definition of those things are. So that's why that's important. So I'm trying to stick to the basics and then I'll get into the different electric vehicles after. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So the definition of a motor vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act, this includes any automotive, motorcycle, motor assist bicycle unless otherwise indicated in this act, or any other vehicle propelled or driven again otherwise than a muscular power. But this does not include streetcars or motor vehicles that run on rails or powered assist bicycles, snow machines, traction engines, farm tractors, or self-propelled implement and road building. So again, the only difference here for the Highway Traffic Act versus criminal code is they are allowing powered assist bicycles to not be classified as a motor vehicle. Does it still make sense for you over there? Okay. And just to give you the difference between the two, power assist versus motor assist, basically electric or power assist bicycles, they have pedals to help provide them for exercise with pedal assist mode, whereas a motor assist bike or a moped, they don't have pedals and therefore they're not there for physical excursion. So e-bikes are considered a power assist vehicle.
Are considered what? Powerless or?
No, they're not considered vehicles under the Highway Traffic Act.
Okay.
So you gotta remember, there's two acts I'm dealing with here. One's the criminal code and one's the Highway Traffic Act.
But your mopeds, some mopeds do have pedals though.
And they are considered a vehicle.
They are considered?
Yes, they are.
But they have pedals, you can pedal them.
Yep. And right, if an officer's investigating, we got to look at the device itself. We have to look at, for a moped here, like a moped is considered a motor assist vehicle and therefore it's considered a motor vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act. And as I said earlier, all powered vehicles under the criminal code are classified as a vehicle. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
It's very, this whole topic is very gray. Most officers know the difference. They have to investigate it. And again, this only applies to enforcing the law. I should have stressed that earlier. Like if someone's operating one of these electric vehicles and they're operating within the law, an officer's not going to bother you unless you're in a situation where you're putting yourself at risk or other people at risk or operating impaired. This is where officers need to know this more than the public. So this is when we enforce the laws. We need to know what the difference is because certain laws do apply.
Use an example. Un exemple, t'es sur ta propriété privée, OK? T'as bu une coupe de drinks, puis tu sautes dessus ton moped, là, ton motor assisted bikes. So, nous autres, comme officiers qui arrivent chez toi, c'est important pour moi de savoir le Criminal Code of Canada and the Highway Traffic Act, OK? So, c'est pour ça que l'officier explique les deux sortes de lois, right? Avec le code criminel, tu peux te faire arrester, right, pour impaired. Highway Traffic Act, c'est une autre façon de voir ce que la loi s'applique, OK? C'est pour ça qu'on explique les deux lois, parce que ça s'applique différemment pour différentes choses.
So I'm just asking, so if you're saying that if you're drinking on your property and you're going to your bicycle and you're driving on your property, under the criminal code, are you going to arrest somebody if you're driving on your own property?
Is it a bicycle or is it a motor assist bicycle?
The moped
That's
and
the difference.
pedals
Okay, if it's a motor assist, yes, you could be arrested for impaired driving
on your own property.
on your own property.
Yes.
Because as I said, the criminal code applies to everywhere in Canada.
That's why
That's
it's
why
important to
it's important to
explain.
explain that.
Yeah.
The criminal code applies anywhere on Canadian soil.
Even on your own property.
Canadian soil. If you're in Canada, it applies
I can't
anywhere.
debate
So
that.
if you want
That's
to, no, but here's a good example.
It's
If
the
you have
law.
a domestic in your house,
Pardon?
if you have a domestic in your house, you're assaulted in your house, we could charge you with assault because it falls under the criminal code. Impaired driving is a criminal code offense and therefore we could
I would
apply.
debate that too, okay, but that's okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's why we're here,
Anyway,
right?
that's, yeah.
It's to
I don't
enlighten
believe
all
that,
of
but
us.
that's okay, let's continue on.
Yeah, so anything under the criminal code applies to any property in Canada.
You could say it all you can, I still won't believe you, that's fine.
That's
You
something,
can repeat it a million times, I still won't believe you,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
but an officer has the right to charge you for operating impaired on your property. And
And you may have seen it just lately on social media where the North Bay Police has enforced it on those similar, they look like disability chairs, right? And a person was charged for impaired driving.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I believe that should have been done here many times,
Yeah.
but,
Like to give you an example, I've laid charges on people operating a motorized,
Scooter?
not scooter, but lawnmower for impaired. And we laid charges for someone operating a Zamboni impaired.
I truly believe you should be
So-
doing that, even if it's a pedal bike, if they're definitely.
And a lot of people aren't aware of this, when it comes to vessels, you could be charged impaired operating a pedal boat. It doesn't have to be motorized when it comes to vessels. You could be impaired in a canoe.
Yep.
So, but we're not here to talk about the vessels, we're just going to electric bikes.
They can get hurt.
But again, that's the officers, we need to know that, and I'm just trying to explain to you I'm trying to break it down, what we gotta look at. I mean, and again, if you're charged with offense, that's what the courts are for. If you're totally don't believe what the charges are correct, that's when you would take that charge to court. And it'll be up to the judge to decide from there. So that's the difference between electric, again, this is only for the Highway Traffic Act. So what's this saying is, under the Highway Traffic Act, electric or power assist bikes are not classified as a vehicle, but a motor assist bikes are. And again, this is more for what the officer needs to know versus yourselves. Definition of a highway. Again, this is important for an officer when we do our investigation. Under the Highway Traffic Act, a highway is broad definition to include any common area or public thoroughway, any street, avenue, parkway, driveway, square, place, bridge, viaduct, trestle, where any part is intended for the use by the general public for the passage of vehicles. This definition also includes the area between the lateral property lines of the roadways. So what that last part means is you take Highway 17, heading either west or east. The paved portion is the highway, but the highway is also classified to the extent of the property. So the ditch area is considered highway. Where that will change is in a municipality, the curb and the sidewalks would follow their municipal bylaws because they're responsible for that. So the definition of highway is important too. Again, this is for us to enforce or engage any type of investigation. The criminal code, again, there is no definition of highway because it applies to anywhere in Canada. You don't need to have a definition of a highway. Back to what you're asking me, it could be on your private property. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions regarding a highway? Okay. So vehicle standards. Every vehicle must meet the following requirements under the Highway Traffic Act to operate on a highway in Canada. All vehicles sold or imported into Canada must meet the Canadian Motor Vehicle Safety Standards. These standards cover various aspects, including airbags, brakes, tires, equipment, and more, and must be mechanically fit. Any vehicle operating on a highway must be insured. Any vehicle operating on a highway must have the proper driver's license. So a car must have at least a G-class license. Motorcycle must have an M-class license. Commercial vehicles have to have their license. So you have to have all those components to operate a vehicle on a highway. I put asterisks here. Electric vehicles, if they don't meet any of these safety vehicles, they can be charged for unsafe vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act. So this is where we officers would lay the charge if we find any electric vehicles operating on a highway without the safety equipment. So now I'm going to go through the different types. So power assist bikes. So this is not considered a motor vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act, but it does under the criminal code. So again, for police officers or enforcement, that means we could enforce anything under the criminal code when someone's operating one of these, but we cannot force anything under the Highway Traffic Act. So we can't, if a person was impaired operating one of these power assist bikes, they could be arrested and charged for operating a power assist bike. But we can't charge someone for speeding on one of these because it's not classified as a vehicle. These things can operate on the highway. They got to stay to the right of the roadway, perpendicular, same rules as a bicycle. Pedals are required for these ones. They cannot exceed the maximum speed limit of 32 kilometers an hour. Must have a maximum weight of 120 kilometers an hour. They must wear helmet. You don't need a license for this or license plates. You can't, some of them do have, you do need the license plate, the green license plate, I have there, but you don't need a driver's license. And you must be at least 16 years of age to operate one of these. If any of these are modified, it changes the status of these vehicles. For example, there's ways you can modify these where they could go over 70 kilometers an hour. And if you're traveling at that speed, this becomes classified as a motorcycle. So the same rules would apply as a motorcycle. This here again, the municipal bylaws can be applied to how they want it operated within the municipality.
You didn't mention insurance for that group.
No, you didn't need insurance for that one because it's not classified as a motor vehicle. So I'll go through the other ones. So that one's not classified as a motor, it's just a power assist bike. So therefore you don't need insurance. The insurance falls under the provincial laws. And therefore it's because it's not classified as a motor vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act, you do not need insurance for that. Mopeds and assist bicycle or motor scooters or limited speed motorcycles. These are considered a motor vehicle both under the Highway Traffic Act and Criminal Code. They're required pedals for the mopeds. They have speeds for the mopeds, maximum speeds of 50 kilometers an hour. And for the limited speed motorcycle, they have maximum speeds of 70 kilometers an hour. They both require helmets, minimum age of 16. Both of these require a license, whether it be M, M1, M2, or restricted M1, or M with L endorsed. You require license plates and insurance for both of these. And while on the highway, you must travel in a marked lane in the slow traffic zone to the far right. And again, you may have bylaws for this regarding side streets and where they can and cannot be operated. Sequent transporters. These are treated as pedestrians on a sidewalk. They are not allowed to operate on any major highway. Again, if the municipality wants them to operate on the side street, that's a bylaw that has to be implemented. You must be at least 14 years of age to operate this. It does require a helmet for people under the age of 18. It requires a light and a bell. So again, these things are not allowed on major highways such as the 17 and all that. And they can be contested on side roads if there's no municipal bylaws if an officer wanted to contest it. Personal mobile devices.
Can they cross the highway?
You could, any of these things you can cross the highway by being perpendicular. Just like walking, because when I talk about treat as a pedestrian, it's the same laws apply as a pedestrian. Like a pedestrian has to cross at the crosswalk, cross the highway. They can't jaywalk. Same with these vehicles. So when I say treat as a pedestrian, that's what I mean. It's the same rules and laws as a pedestrian.
You have to walk them?
No, just you have to follow the same rules as the rest pedestrian.
Like on the sidewalk, not cross and random places go at the traffic light and so on. So
Jaywalking, all that applies. Again, with these personal mobile devices, you got to treat them as a pedestrian, same rules of the road as a pedestrian, which you just asked. They're not permitted to operate on major highways. If on secondary streets or highways, follow the same rules as a pedestrian, so far right, against traffic. Officers can seize these for safety reasons if they're found being operated in an unsafe manner. And again, may be used on sidewalks if municipalities create bylaws to allow these things. And there's various forms of those scooters. I think there's a gentleman here that brought one in. Who was I talking to earlier? Oh, this one here. Yeah, so there's various forms of those. So that's why it's very important to see what these things are classified as. So if you're looking at purchase, you have to know what the classification is and what laws apply to it. Prohibited vehicles. Now, again, when I say prohibited, these are prohibited on the highways because one of the big questions I get is, well, if they're prohibited, why are they selling them? They're not illegal to own. They're not illegal to use on private property. They become prohibited when you start using them on highways. So there's nothing stopping the person from selling them or you buying them. It's just where you use them that it becomes prohibited. And that's usually on a highway. So this includes electric scooters, pocket bikes, and I think this is coming up more, these electric unicycles are starting to be seen more and more. Again, these are prohibited use on a highway. They're meant to be used on private property. Again, if we're finding them used on the highway, they could charge on the Highway Traffic Act, which is section 84.1, which I explained earlier in the screen. Now, for the electric scooters and the unicycles, this is something that the municipality could allow and permit on their sidewalks or side streets. The pocket bikes are not allowed basically anywhere. Those are private property altogether. But the other two devices, like I said, if the municipality wants to incorporate that in the bylaws and allow them to use as a pedestrian onto the sidewalks or side streets, that's something the municipality has to bring a bylaw into. Pilot project vehicles. This here is what we've been getting a lot of calls or questions about. And according to the, well, I'll read this first and I'll get into it. So low-speed vehicles are not entirely prohibited in Ontario, but their use is subject to certain regulation and restriction. Ontario has a pilot project that allows low-speed vehicles to operate on roadways with speed limits of 50 kilometers or less. Municipalities can choose to permit these low-speed vehicles use through their bylaws and setting specific requirements. So Ontario started this pilot project back in 2017, which expires on June 29, 2027, to see how they're going to operate and whether they're going to allow them in other communities. If you look on the website about these low-speed vehicles, which are these things, basically it says they are not prohibited anywhere in Ontario unless there's a pilot project going on. And again, I have here prohibited vehicle unless the municipal bylaws it's in the project. So these are both classified as a motor vehicle in the Highway Traffic Act and the Criminal Code. Same rules of the road applies to these motor vehicles. They're enforceable by both the Highway Traffic Act and Criminal Code. Minimum age of 16. Passengers are allowed. You don't need a helmet with it. And they're restricted to roadways only 50 kilometers or less. And again, if an officer finds this is prohibited, they could lay that charge. Now, I have a problem with this myself because if the MTO is actually registering these, where you have the green MTO card, you're actually getting a license plate for these things. You have a valid driver's license, you have valid insurance, and you're following all these rules here. I would personally have a hard time laying any type of enforcement on these if you're falling within these guidelines. So again, it's very vague when you look at when they say it's prohibited anywhere in Ontario except for these pilot projects. Because if the MTOs are issuing these with a license, like a legitimate license plate and registration, then, and if you're following these guidelines, I cannot enforce saying it's prohibited unless you're going outside. Like if you're taking this vehicle here and you're driving down 17 towards North Bay or Sudbury, you're automatically on a highway that exceeds 50 kilometers an hour. So yes, I would say that's prohibited in that area. But if you're staying locally, every officer has their own discretion on how they interpret the law and whether they want to lay charges. They can either lay charges, educate, or inform. So every officer has their own discretion for that. The only time you'll see officers not just would be stay with the enforcement side if the person is operating impaired or driving in a reckless manner that they're going to harm themselves or someone else, then you'll see enforcement definitely. But it's up to the officer whether they just want to warn or educate people. And I think
Are they, so this is discriminatory or whatever to the individual officer? So it's not like every officer can make their own decision if they want to lay charges or?
Depending on what's happening, yes. So and that's why I went through everything because for our officers, we got to know what is it classified. So what we learned from the beginning of this, any vehicle that's not muscular power is considered a motor vehicle. Therefore, the Highway Traffic Act and Criminal Code applies to both of them with the exception of the one bicycle, which is power assist. So for us to lay a charge, it has to be classified as a motor vehicle.
So you would write that, the reason why, and we can go to court and present it.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
so the other thing is though, but if they're going 50 kilometers on the road, that's 50 kilometers or less. So you're saying that it's okay to go on the road? Or it's
for
not?
these things,
No.
for these,
The issue we're having
I'm just-
with those, sorry, the issue we're having with those, because I sell those, they're mobility scooters. And they should be driven on the sidewalks.
yeah, so they should not be driven on the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's the law.
So and now you sell them, so let me ask you this, now I meant to stop and talk to you. When they're registered, do they get the green MTO form and a license plate?
No.
Okay, so they're not,
OPP's been telling some of my
You get
customers
past
to go
that.
register, and people go to the on Silver Road, and they're laughed at. They say, what are you doing? It's a mobility scooter. I honestly buy them as a mobility scooter. I sell them as a mobility scooter. They are allowed by law on the sidewalks, if no sidewalks, on the side of the road.
Okay, so then if they're under a mobility scooter, we go back to that part that talks, if it's a mobile scooter, it has to follow.
It's a scooter,
It's
it's
a
not a
It's a
car.
mobility scooter.
So
Yeah,
they can't be on the highway then.
They don't.
Like
No
instead
highway,
of
no
buying a
roads.
wheelchair electric, I bought one that's covered. So it's the same way, I'm using
So those
it.
things are not to be allowed on the highway then?
No,
No,
mobility
they're not.
scooter.
So again, they're actually prohibited on the highway. It's up to the municipality if they want to create bylaws to allow them on the sidewalks and the side streets.
Because there is a bylaw for West Nipissing for
Yeah.
mobility scooters on the highway.
Okay.
I buy them, they're a mobility scooter. I wouldn't sell them if I wouldn't be allowed.
No, and that, like I said, I was under the impression these things had to, talking to someone that called in, that they were registered, they had license plate, insurance and,
Because all I've been hearing from OPP is the slow-moving vehicles. I've never sold one of those. They go up to 50. Mine max out at 30. It's a mobility scooter.
so they would fall under the mobility school, is what I explained earlier then. It's treated as a pedestrian.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just a lot of people got pulled over. Hey, if they're impaired, I agree, charge them. They deserve it.
Yeah, and we've had several of those here in West Nipissing where people have been charged with impaired on them. And we've had people that have been disqualified drivers that are buying them thinking they could operate them, but we can't
Yes.
because it's classified as a motor vehicle.
If they're not allowed to drive, I agree, they shouldn't be driving if they're under suspension.
Yep, same thing.
Like my scooter, what it gave me is an independence that I had lost. So now I can go do my groceries, I can do things, but it's a scooter, it's not a car.
So therefore, like I said, if it's a scooter, it operates on the sidewalks. My question to you though, when it snows, where are you operating those?
I know last Friday,
We don't make the law, we just gotta follow. it.
mine is a little big.
I know, but if it's snowing and the sidewalks are covered, where are you operating them? On the roadway?
actually, it's put away during the winter.
We never had issues. I know people were driving on the road. We never had issues, but I understand there's a lot of them now.
Yeah.
So we gotta follow the rules and the sidewalk. Winter time, not much use them, but there is a few customers that do use
Yeah.
them. I tell them to drive it on the sidewalks if they don't want a ticket, right? 'Cause
Yeah, and so again, if the municipality allows them on the sidewalks, then that's fine. They're not allowed on the highway.
No, I
Can
agree,
we
no
cross
highway.
though?
Yes, you can cross, because
Not
it's
like that,
treated as a
but just like
pedestrian.
that?
Yeah, so what I said earlier, it's treated as a pedestrian, you cross like a pedestrian.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I went under the Ontario Highway Traffic Act, and there is saying on there that enclosed mobility scooters are treated as pedestrians
That's correct.
under the Highway Traffic Act, and they are operated on the sidewalks only and not allowed on the roadways.
That's what I just said.
So, yeah, so,
Perfect.
but you're saying though, it all depends on the police officer that stops you, I think it should be.
But it depends what's happening, that's what I'm saying. If you're
Yes.
operating them on the highway, it's up to,
We're not,
No, but that's-
anybody here's not talking about the highway.
no, but that's what I'm referring to. It's up to the officer then to educate you or enforce if you're breaking the law at that time.
We're not talking about the highway. I think everybody here is not.
No,
concerned
everybody's
about
here
the highway.
because of people getting pulled over.
So officer discretion, right?
Well, it should
Officer-
be, because it should be,
So officer has discretion, okay? So, as a police officer, I see you're driving not according to the act. I will stop you. And depending on the circumstances, I have discretion. Okay, it's an authority that we have as police officers in Ontario, that we have discretion to lay a charge or not. You know, was there a collision? Is there drugs, alcohol involved? So the officer will use discretion and assess the situation and whether or not to lay a charge, okay? So that is the discretion, that's what it
understand that, but I'm going to go back to, we have police officers that are not, they're
Informative?
dishonest and will try to charge you with different things. And that's what I'm afraid of, okay? And
If
with
that happens, I welcome you to, to come and advise, okay? Definitely.
Because definitely, like, we have to make sure that if the person is not, like I say, there's a person that was 5 times they weren't stopped by police officers, let them go. And so that is a problem there. And then after that, the honest people are being punished because of that. So it shouldn't happen. We have to, if it's a family member, let somebody else, another officer do the charging or whatever, but it cannot happen where it's discriminate, like it's just.
But you're saying that the officer stopped and fired, were they doing something wrong or were they just,
Every time they were drunk,
okay, sorry, I
so,
misunderstood.
but they never charged them.
Yes, so
So
they should be
that's,
charged.
that's what I'm saying. It's like really honestly.
Yeah.
I truly believe if they're impaired, whether it's drugs or alcohol, they definitely, even if it's a little pedal bike, I don't care. They should be charged. Honestly, they should be charged because that's our jobs is the jobs and that's what, but don't punish others that are like they're honest people and then all of a sudden a police officer decides because whatever happens that day to them is decided. Because I would challenge that, definitely.
No, and you have
I
that right to
appreciate that.
challenge.
Yes. But it's difficult, but anyway. Okay,
No, but that, and that's what the courts are for. Again, I'm not sure, I can't speak for the officer, I wasn't there, what happened.
yeah,
But if you ever feel you're wrongfully, there's two avenues, you could always put a complaint and speak to the supervisor or inspector,
that's not gonna happen, but that's okay.
but you
I
could
just
challenge
want to
it.
remind you guys about the Ontario Human Rights Code as well, as somebody who's with disabilities. That you have as public servants, have the right to make sure that somebody with disabilities have the right to have access to any other person, the legal right to, so you cannot discriminate against them.
No, but you can't break the law doing that.
Pardon?
You can't break the law
I'm
doing
not
that.
asking, if they're breaking the law, I have no issues with that. Definitely.
Really appreciate your feedback. As the detachment commander, if there are any issues in relation to officer conduct, I strongly encourage you to go online and file a complaint. There's several processes for that, or to come and see me. Thank you for your feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I got one of those enclosed mobility scooters last year after a stomach surgery gone bad that I've mostly recovered from now, but it gave me back my independence. However, after about a month of driving it on the sidewalk, because I had read the laws and tried to be as well educated about it as I could be, I was told by an OPP officer that it must be operated on the roadway. I have only ever been stopped in that vehicle on the sidewalk and told to move to a roadway.
I've heard that too,
Yes.
What am I supposed to do?
honestly.
I've only ever been stopped twice because I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't drive impaired. I take it very, very seriously. And my end goal in this is to get fully licensed and back on the road. But
And I think
I
that's
don't
why
know
we're
what
working
to
with the town to get these bylaws in so that it's more clear. Clearly, the officer probably didn't know the difference of the vehicle, and that's why I went through and explained to you guys the difference of vehicles, how it applies to different criminal codes, the definition of highways. So I'm not sure what the officers think, but that you need to know what type of vehicles and where it's supposed to be.
yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Like I've only driven it to the mail and back to my house for the last little while because
Because of that article that came out and because of people telling him he needs his license and he needs
Yeah.
insurance.
and like I'm
And
able
like-
to get my license. I just haven't gone to do it because I've spent the last month rebuilding my core muscles so that I can
Now,
stand straight. Like
let me explain here, like I said, this stuff, like I said at the beginning, this is a very gray area, it's not
Yeah.
black and white.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, a lot of officers weren't sure which way it was either. And I know since that time, if this was last year, since that time, we've thrown out information to the officers with all this information as to what can and cannot operate on the highway, what's the differences, know the different types of vehicles. So that's been distributed to the officers so they're aware of these different types because I'll tell you myself, before I started investigating this, I wasn't aware there were so many different types of classification of these electric vehicles myself.
It's a lot.
So they may have just been informed at the time, but I do know now because we have distributed the information to the officers.
Yeah.
So that they're aware of there's different types of these electric vehicles.
But in your presentation, my vehicle would fall under your pilot program.
No, it's
No, that's
mobility.
legal.
So,
But it's not.
But it's a mobility
mobil-
scooter.
mobility.
No, but
I
there's
have a handicap
there's a
sticker
difference
on the
because-
back and everything.
their low-speed vehicles is actually classified as a vehicle.
Yeah.
But
well,
from
my
you're
only
telling me
concern
that's
is
a mobile scooter.
A
It's a-
mobility
Yes.
scooter.
Yeah.
Mobility
Enclosure mobility
I
scooter.
buy them as mobility scooters.
Yeah. So
And
like,
And they're sold as.
just to give an idea of what I use personally, it has scooter handlebars, no pedals, It's a handlebar throttle. It has bike brakes that are regular disc brakes. It's fully enclosed. It's heated, it's air conditioned, but it only goes 35 kilometers an hour. So
But it literally looks like one of the LSVs.
it looks almost exactly
But
like the
it's a
photo
mobility
you showed
scooter.
of the pilot program view. So if the information you have is what's being given to OPP officers,
They're gonna think.
they're gonna think I'm driving a pilot program vehicle, I'm going to be stopped and potentially charged.
Yeah, it has to be whatever the classification is. So if it's a mobile.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the classification your information provides is different from the classification that is written because the photo that you provided is of almost exactly my vehicle.
You're talking about that last photo?
Yeah. the
That's
pilot
a low-
program
But that
vehicle?
was a low-speed vehicle.
No, and mine only goes 35 kilometers an hour, does not have a gas pedal, does not have steering wheels, which are in the requirements of defining a low-speed vehicle. It only has a scooter handlebar. It is an enclosed mobility scooter. I have a handicap sticker on it and I'm allowed handicap parking.
But it does look like the LSVs.
But it looks exactly like the pilot program vehicle you listed here.
I'd have to look at your, like you said, if I was investigating, I'd look at your registration, look what it's classified.
I can't register
There's no
it.
No, I'm saying it's registered on the type, on the serial number, and it tells you what type of vehicle it
Oh,
is.
the vehicle, like the VIN number? Okay, that's fair.
Can I ask a question just of the public, if that's okay?
Sure.
What, for those people who are operating these kinds of vehicles on sidewalks, how do you deal with it when you run into other pedestrians? Because I think my concern as far as safety of pedestrians, as opposed to the scooters, is that these enclosed scooters are quite large. And on our sidewalk, we're not a big city with double wide sidewalks, so when you're operating them actually on sidewalks, there is some conflict between regular pedestrian and these vehicles that are being operated, so I'm sorry, I'd just like to know, how that is managed, and that's whether what if one person in a regular scooter or a wheelchair, and then you've got these larger enclosed vehicles, there's not a lot of room. So how do you manage that as an operator of one of these?
So ma'am,
Yes,
last Friday, I went to Mac's bookstore and
Yeah.
I went through Salter.
mm-hmm,
So before there was sidewalk, I was on, let's say, facing the traffic.
Yeah.
And people coming in, like cars coming towards me, were beeping the horn and they were even giving me the finger.
okay.
And then when I got to where there was a sidewalk,
Uh-huh.
my machine is a little big. So if there was nobody, just me, but I had to be careful to.
Stay on.
When there's post or there's a hydro pole or, yeah. But how's about we were, you're on the road, but you're walking, okay? You're facing the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And, because my machine is a little big, and if I was to meet somebody, you don't always have a place to get off the road.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see what North Bay sent? With how they fix up their scooter up there? It's
Yeah.
ideal. You get charged if you misbehave.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, everything's written here?
They treat them
Would
exactly
you
like
guys like to
scooters.
see that?
And North Bay treats them like pedestrians.
Eh?
I said North Bay City has adopted them, treated like a pedestrian on the sidewalk.
It's a pedestrian.
Okay,
I tell my customers, though, if they do meet a pedestrian, stop, let them walk by.
yeah,
Because no, we don't want nobody getting run over.
No.
Right, because it's totally something else.
The only place I ever ran into issues personally was directly along King Street. Sometimes can get a little bit crowded. And almost always, either the person let me get a little ahead so that I could pull off to the side, closer to the vehicles than they are, because frankly, I'm safer in my little buggy than they are on the street. And they had more than enough room to walk by. I didn't run into any conflicts where anybody seemed in danger. But that is my limited anecdotal experience. I would also like to ask another question. is there somewhere we can get that serial number checked to know how the vehicle is classified ourselves?
Not to my knowledge. Like I said, this stuff is evolving faster than the MTO can keep up to.
Yeah.
So I really don't know where you would go to classify it. Like I said, us as officers, we have to look at the definitions I told you. Again, that's for enforcement purposes.
Yeah.
Because again, if we're enforcing, we need to know what type of vehicle it is, and which laws apply.
Yeah.
But by also knowing what type of vehicle it is, we know whether it should be on the roadway or on the sidewalk. And the only ones I've come across was the power assist bikes and bicycles allowed on the roadway with vehicle traffic, like regular automotive motorists.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's it for me for now.
Any other questions? Avez-vous d'autres questions?
Yeah, another question. I've been hearing from some of my customers, they're calling the OPP and some OPP, I'm not sure who's saying this, but they say if it's a steering wheel, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
If it's handlebars, it's allowed. I say that's not true. I sell this exact same mobility scooter. I have customers with one arm. They can't do throttle, brakes, so they have to have steering and then it's the foot brake.
And it's still classified as a mobile
Yes, it
scooter?
is, sir. Come see me sometime at my
Yeah,
shop.
but is it classified as a motor scooter?
A mobility scooter.
Yeah, so as long as it's classified as a mobility scooter, I don't think it matters what the steering mechanism is.
Okay, no, that's not what I've been hearing, that's why, I just wanna, if everybody's on the same page, everything will work better, right?
Yeah, and that's why we want to do this presentation. And at the same time, like I said, all the stuff that I present to you has been forwarded to all our officers. I do know we have some new officers who may not know the ins and outs of it, but they need to speak to someone that's more senior. And like I said, prior to all this, I wasn't 100% sure of all these different vehicle types.
Yeah.
As recent as 2 months ago, when I called the OPP off, like they still didn't know. They said it's allowed on 2 days apart. It's allowed on the sidewalk. The other day, the next day was like, it's allowed only on the road. And they're like, they don't even know themselves. So I think at education, that's why I want to be here.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we're hashing this all out, and as well, everybody can be educated.
No, and that again, that's what comes under the officer's discretion in terms of educating. And we educate each other as well, because us as police, we're always learning too. Our job is constantly evolving. There's things changing all the time. Like when I grew up, there's no such thing as electric vehicles.
Autre question? D'autres questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a bit of a suggestion. Given both Sturgeon's aging population and the prevalence of these smaller vehicles and mobility scooters and stuff, I think that the town should potentially likely consider bike lanes in the foreseeable future.
That won't happen. I'm telling you right now that there is not the amount of assets that we have to fix. We have 535 kilometers of road,
Yeah.
just over 15,000 people. The addition of bike lanes, as much as we'd all love to see it, and it would be safe, it's not realistic given the financial pressures of the municipality when we have so many other assets to, like, we have a hard time keeping up with all the roads with
Bike lanes.
535 kilometers on 15,000 people. So
Bike lanes don't need to be paid.
it,
Yeah, they're absolutely still.
you know, bike lanes would be very difficult. It's even difficult for us to do sidewalks. There are areas in this municipality that we should have sidewalks and we don't right now. And you can look at Coursel Road from John down to the A&W. There should be a sidewalk there. There's not. It's part of the plan that's, we're doing design work this year, but you know, like when we look at what the priorities are as far as developing infrastructure and maintaining the infrastructure we have, it would probably be a very difficult ask, you know, just like from a realistic standpoint and what that would mean for the taxpayers.
No, it's respectful. It is just an open suggestion because it seems like that's how North Bay has largely been able to mitigate it becoming an issue, is they treat them more as bikes and restrict them heavily to the bike lanes and stuff, for the most part.
Yeah.
And it solves a lot of the congestion issues that they face. cause.
Yeah, and North Bay is fortunate because they're a largely urban municipality where the population is densely concentrated in a much smaller area.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's just kind of the reality of having a largely rural municipality and having so much infrastructure. But it would be great. I mean, it would be great, but I'd put sidewalks in some of those critical areas first as.
Yeah, like down by Resurrection School where they don't extend all four ways and stuff like that. I respect that.
Thank you.
Madame Lémiard, en voix forte.
I was just wondering if the downtown core had some bike lanes.
Mhm.
For example, maybe one side of the street could eliminate the parking along the street. instead of having-
We don't have a
You have to park, you find on the other street.
I agree. And like there are some places where it's
Jean-Guy, en voix forte.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The front street here in town, is that considered a highway?
Everything,
Is it considered part of the hamlet here?
and anything that a vehicle operates on, like I said, is considered highway. So, main highway, side streets, parkway, anywhere there's vehicle traffic is considered highway under the Highway Traffic Act.
Yeah. But you referred to speed limits early on in your presentation, going to North Bay, going to South
Yeah.
Bay. But my question is the link in town, is that defined?
So where our connecting link runs from the Comfort Inn to
Yeah.
No Frills, where the speed limit's actually 50 kilometers an hour, because the speed limit's 50 kilometers an hour, then under that's what you're getting at?
Yeah.
I don't, is that, everything's considered highway, but they have to operate these things, have to be within no greater than a speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour. So as soon as this highway changes greater than 50, those vehicles cannot operate on those highways.
So within town they could.
They can operate within town, because most of your speed limits are 50 and under, right?
Oh, so like, could I operate as a pedestrian then like on the side to no frills and then turn into no frills, for example? Like, would that be feasible?
Sidewalk.
There's a
Oh, the sidewalk, yeah.
Sidewalk.
And if it's not a sidewalk, you have to stay on the shoulder of the road as a pedestrian.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how some of these roadways, how much shoulder you have. to
Yeah,
operate.
I don't think on the side of the highway. I don't think it's realistic.
Autre question, other questions before we wrap this up? No? Board members, questions? Good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do they need an active driver's license? Like I didn't get it confirmed in the presentation.
What? It depends on the vehicle.
Mobility.
Mobile, no.
Okay, you don't need an active driver's
No, it's because
license.
it's like a pedestrian.
Okay,
Now, keep in mind, if you're charged with impaired driving or suspended drive, you can't operate any of these vehicles. It's because it's classified as a motor vehicle and therefore you can be charged, if you don't have a driver's license.
Nothing.
okay.
Because we've had people that bought these electric vehicles because they lost their license from driving impaired, thinking they can operate these, but you cannot, because it's charged for operating while impaired,
Okay.
drive while disqualified, I should say.
What if people have lost their driver's license due to either cognitive decline or other issues? Because I think that is where there would also be some concern.
If there's no criminal charge preventing you from operating these, like disqualified drive or suspended drive, if they only like medical reason that they lost their license, then they could still operate if their license is required.
Do we know what kind of liability is involved if somebody were to be operating a mobility scooter? Like, could they be sued?
Because there's no insurance,
Yes.
it would be more of a civil lawsuit.
Okay, and thank you very much. It went a bit over time, but I think it's worth it. Merci beaucoup. C'est une bonne éducation. C'est pour ça qu'on a fait la session. Alors, j'aimerais remercier Nathalie, Stephanie, and Robert for being here. Thank you very much for being here. Very educational. Board members, Madam Mayor, and the public. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.